Welcome to Zenith Zero, a realm where verified breakthroughs collide with the unexplained. From the cutting edge of science to mysteries that defy logic, we go beyond the known, exploring the future's untold secrets. Join us as we challenge the limits of knowledge and uncover truths hidden in the shadows of tomorrow. This is Zenith Zero.
Welcome back, everyone, for another deep dive. Today we're looking at something, well, pretty wild, even for us.
I know, right? Espionage and the paranormal. You wouldn't think those two go together.
You'd be surprised. So we're talking about Project Stargate, the CIA's 20-year exploration of psychic abilities. And get this, specifically for spying.
Yeah, remote viewing. The idea that you could train someone to basically see what's happening in a distant location just with their mind.
Like actually see it, or more like sense it somehow.
That's the million-dollar question. And these declassified documents you sent over about Project Stargate, they actually try to get into the nuts and bolts of how it supposedly works.
Seriously, CIA training manuals for psychic. This is some next-level stuff.
Oh, absolutely. But before we get into that, you got to wonder, what pushed the CIA to even consider this in the first place?
Right, like what's the historical context here?
Picture this. The Cold War. Tensions are through the roof. The U.S. is convinced the Soviets are exploring every possible advantage, including psychic espionage.
So it was a case of, hey, if they're doing it, we need to do it too.
Basically, the fear was that the Soviets were way ahead in weaponizing psychic powers. Imagine the intel advantage if you could spy on anyone, anywhere, undetected.
Talk about a game changer. Okay, so let's get into these documents. How did they even begin to train someone for this? Did they just put out an ad, psychic spies wanted?
Pretty much. No, but seriously, they used some, shall we say, unconventional methods.
Like what, spill the tea?
Well, sensory deprivation was a big one. They'd put folks in these Ganzfeld chambers.
Ganzfeld. Sounds intense.
It sounds scarier than it is. Imagine ping pong balls cut in half over your eyes, white noise blasting in your ears, total sensory shutdown.
I guess the idea was to cut out all the external noise to see if any psychic signals could get through.
Precisely. Quiet the mind, amplify those latent abilities. They also used guided visualization. Think meditation, but instead of finding inner peace, you're trying to mentally travel to a secret Soviet facility.
Whoa, so instead of risking agents in the field, they're sending minds across borders. Did this actually work, though? Were there any genuine cases of remote viewing success?
Now, that's where things get really interesting. Some of these cases, especially the ones in this paranormal.pdf document, are truly mind-boggling. But of course, skepticism surrounded the project from day one. And you got to remember, we're talking about the Cold War, so the stakes were incredibly high.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this wasn't just about proving psychics are real. We're talking potential military intelligence, right?
Absolutely. We're talking about peeking into the heart of the Soviet Union, maybe even getting a leg up in the arms race, all without sending a single agent into enemy territory.
No wonder they were so invested in it. Were there any specific cases from these documents that stood out to you? Ones where you thought, okay, maybe, just maybe, there's something to this remote viewing thing?
There are a few, for sure. One that comes to mind involved this remote viewer named Joe McMoneagle. They tasked him with locating a secret Soviet submarine base, which, let's be honest, sounds impossible.
Yeah, like finding a needle in a haystack underwater on the other side of the world.
Right. But here's the thing. McMoneagle, even though he was skeptical at first, he gave this incredibly detailed description of the facility. The layout, the buildings, even the surrounding landscape.
Hold on. All this, and he wasn't even anywhere near the actual site.
Nope. He was at a CIA facility miles and miles away. And get this, when they finally got their hands on satellite photos of the area McMoneagle described, they found a facility that matched his description scarily well. Like, scarily accurate.
You're kidding. Okay, now that does make you wonder. But I can already hear the skeptic saying, well, maybe it was a lucky guess, or he subconsciously picked up that information somewhere.
Of course, of course. And that's the biggest challenge with evaluating these claims. How do you separate a genuine psychic flash from a coincidence or a lucky guess or even, something they saw in a magazine or forgot about?
Right, like subconscious influence.
Exactly. And we can't ignore the fact that in 1995, the American Institutes for Research, they did a big evaluation of Project Stargate and concluded there wasn't enough solid evidence to say, yes, remote viewing is real.
Right. The AIR report, they pretty much said, we can't rule it out, but we can't confirm it either. That must have been a letdown after 20 years and millions of dollars poured into the project.
Yeah, it was essentially the end of Project Stargate in its official capacity, at least.
But not the end of the fascination, right?
Oh, not at all. Not at all. Even today, the idea of remote viewing, psychic spies, it still captures the imagination. I mean, think about shows like Stranger Things or movies like The Men Who Stare at Goats.
It's like this idea, this possibility, it just won't go away.
And why should it? It taps into something primal, something exciting. The idea that maybe, just maybe, we have these hidden abilities, this untapped potential, just waiting to be unlocked.
You know, we've been talking about these programs, these documents, but there's a human side to all this too, right? Like, what about the remote viewers themselves? What happened to them after Project Stargate shut down?
That's a good question. I mean, can you imagine? You devote years, decades even, to honing this skill, this ability that most of the world considers, well, let's just say, out there.
Yeah, facing skepticism, maybe even ridicule from your own peers. It must have been a real ride.
Absolutely. And for many of them, it wasn't just a job, right? It was a passion, a calling even. They genuinely believed in this, in the power of the mind.
And then poof, the funding dries up, the program's over.
Yeah.
You'd think that would be the end of it, right? But it wasn't.
Not at all. Many of them kept at it, kept practicing, exploring. Some even went on to offer their remote viewing services commercially.
Really? Like you can hire a psychic spy today?
Apparently so. There's still a market for it, believe it or not. Missing persons cases, predicting future events, you name it.
Wow. It just goes to show the power of belief, doesn't it? Even without the government backing, the scientific validation, the idea persists. It makes you wonder, what if there is something more to it than we can currently explain? What if Project Stargate, even though it officially ended, opened up a door to a realm of human potential that we're only just beginning to grasp?
It's definitely a possibility. And I think that's the most intriguing part of all this. We might not have all the answers, but Project Stargate, it left us with a lot to think about. A legacy of questions, a sense of wonder about what the human mind is truly capable.
Absolutely. Well, on that note, to our listeners, thanks for joining us for another deep dive. We've gone from Cold War espionage to psychic spies to the very nature of human consciousness. It's been quite a ride. What do you think about all this? Is remote viewing the real deal or just a bunch of wishful thinking? Maybe this deep dive will inspire you to do some exploring of your own. Until next time.
The shadows of the digital realm may be vast, but together we've illuminated another corner of the unknown. Remember, every echo in the wires has a source, and every shadow conceals a truth waiting to be revealed. Join us next time on Zenith Zero, where the line between discovery and mystery fades once again. Until then, stay curious, stay vigilant, and never stop questioning.